What is up, my guys? Welcome back to the podcast. This is Operation Smarty Pants, where our mission is to acquire knowledge and expand our minds. I am your host, Special Agent Ray, and today we are going to be traveling around the world with David Attenborough, learning how different animals across the globe use color to camouflage themselves. I'm super excited about this one. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to stick around to the end of this episode for some shout outs from last week's episode. We are going to get right into this though. I watched a episode, I think it's a 2 or 3 part series on Netflix called Life in Color with David Attenborough. And I watched episode 2. I skipped the first one because this one looked a lot more interesting. It checks out how different animals use color, the coloring of their bodies, and how some of them can even change color, how they use color to camouflage themselves to either hide from predators or to hide from prey, to keep themselves from becoming a meal or to acquire their next meal. Now, in this specific episode, in this specific series, I believe, they were able to create some very fancy, like high definition imagery using new and developing camera technology. So it was pretty cool. Some of this stuff we were able to sort of see a little more in depth what either these animals are seeing or what it looks like to other creatures, kind of seeing into light spectrums that we ourselves cannot see as human beings. But with this fancy technology, they were able to at least create some sort of representation so that we can better understand how these animals are experiencing their life. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at maybe 3 to 4 different specific circumstances where color is used for camouflage in very interesting ways. And I think for some of them, it would be fun to kind of translate these animal situations into something that we as humans could more understand. Like how if this animal, hides themselves in this way in order to get their next meal, what would that look like if we were humans doing the same thing? It sounds a little funky, but I think it'll make sense once we actually get into it a little bit more. So let's begin in central India with the Bengal tiger. So this is one of the biggest cats in the entire world. And in this little section, we got to watch a female tiger on the hunt. She was stalking her prey, sort of using the trees in this area for cover. She was going after a type of animal called a cheetah deer. They're cute little deer. They apparently only have 2 color receptors in their eye. So we as human beings have 3. We have S cones, M cones, and L cones, which basically stands for small, medium, and large. And they allow us to see blue, green, and red light, and sort of all the light colors in between. But these cheetah deer, however, they only have 2 receptors. I believe they only have the S and the M cones. They don't have the L cones, which means they cannot see red or orange colors. They really only see in the blue, yellow, and green light spectrum. So what they were able to do in this documentary episode was change the colors of the footage to show what these cheetah deer are seeing. So you can see the tiger sort of stalking through the woods, stalking through the long underbrush, and we as humans can see the different black and red stripes. However, when the filter kind of goes over and you're seeing it as if from a cheetah deer's perspective, the red stripes fade away and everything turns a sort of muted green, and the tiger disappeared. The Bengal tiger disappeared. You couldn't see it at all. So this is one of the ways that camouflage is working in a way that is not easily observed, but it works for this bear and doesn't really work for the deer. So the tiger still has to be very careful, still has to be very quiet as it's approaching these deer, because even though the deer are seeing the tiger in, or even though these deer are not seeing the tiger, they're just seeing the sort of muted green landscape, the deer hang around a type of monkey called langur monkeys. And these monkeys are known as the eyes of the forest. They do have all of the color receptors. They can see orange light. And so they are better able to see the tiger coming. So in a beautiful form of communication and camaraderie, the deer hang out around these monkeys. The monkeys hang out around the deer. And once the monkeys see the deer coming, they will sound the alarm. They will give out a cry and a call and let the deer know, hey, there's a predator coming after you, and they can all scatter. The tiger jumps and bites and is not able to get anything because of the teamwork of these other creatures. Now, only about 10% of all of these tiger attacks are actually successful, which is a very small number. So this girl, Bengal tiger, this lady, she's really only eating, 1 in 10 times where she is attempting to hunt these deer. And I mean, they showed her running after it in slow motion. You can see she is so powerful. You can see the muscles rippling. You see these giant paws hitting the ground. You see her mouth open. I mean, it's terrifying and beautiful at the same time. And she only lands about 10% of the time. Now, it doesn't sound like very much, but if you think about it, that's really all she needs. 10% isn't a lot, but when you're getting an entire deer, that is a meal that is going to fill you up for days and days and days. You can eat that entire thing and be good for, a week or so, maybe. So if she didn't have this ability to camouflage in the eyes of these deer, then she maybe wouldn't have any successful attacks at all. So 10% is pretty good. Obviously, it is enough for her to survive because she's still there. She's keeping it going. And the deer are also able to survive. They have teamed up with these monkeys. They are able to, stay out of her way most of the time. Of course, one of them is going to get snatched and eaten every now and then. That is the way of the world. That is just the way that it goes. Next, we are going to travel to Kenya, to Masai Mara, and take a look at the herds of zebras that live out there on the plains. These zebras are usually hunted by any sorts of creatures such as lions, hyenas, cheetahs. So they have a lot of predators, and they are zebras. So they are black and white, and they stand out against the rolling green and blue plains, of course. You'd think that would be easy pickings for these predators. They're basically like a big striped bullseye, wandering around, eating grasses, hanging out, living their lives. You'd think it wouldn't be too difficult to snatch up a zebra. However, these very unique, high contrast striped patterns work in their favor. So each zebra has a completely unique pattern. No one is like the other. It's like their own individual full body fingerprints, which is pretty cool. They are all unique and beautiful in their own way. And this helps them because when a predator is coming up on a herd of zebra and the zebras are kind of mixing together, standing close to each other, even if the predator starts to go after them and they start running, they run in pairs or in thirds, and all of this movement and the movement of the stripes creates what they called in the documentary a sort of motion dazzle, which confuses the predators. So basically, these predators chasing after them, they aren't really sure which part of the zebra they're looking at. Is that a leg? Is that the flank? Is that one zebra? Is that another? If I lunge now, is it gonna cut away? So they can't really get a good lock on just one zebra or one part of the zebra to chase down and attack and take down. They have to sort of, in their minds and in their brains, as they're taking these couple of seconds to try and run and chase these down, they have to decide, is that a zebra? Is that not a zebra? Is that two zebras? Can I hit it? Can I, So they're making all of these calculations in their head. They may be hesitating a little bit, getting a little bit confused, and that gives the zebra enough time to get away and survive another day. So I think that's pretty interesting how the zebras standing out is actually working to their benefit rather than their detriment. And now let's apply this to our modern day. Let's say that you and your friends, there's maybe 2 or 3 of you, you guys are, walking home from either from the school, or you're out at the bars or something, you're walking home late at night, and someone pops out and they've got a knife and they want to take your wallets, they want to mug you, they want to take your jewelry, your valuables, whatever you have. And so you and your friends, in an attempt to dazzle and confuse them, you guys break out into a little dance routine and you start moving around. You're doing jazz hands. You are moving in sort of unpredictable ways. And this criminal who is trying to mug you maybe gets a little confused and is like, what are they doing? This is not how people are supposed to react when I pull a knife on them. And now they're jumping around and switching spots, and I don't know where someone's gonna be. I don't know, if I try and slash out with this knife, I may hit one, I may not, because they're running and jumping. And if you can confuse them enough, then maybe that gives you guys a chance to, dance backwards, dance away, run away. I don't know. But I feel like, you tell me what you guys think. Is that an accurate parallel or not? I don't know, but just the idea of being safe, getting yourself to safety by confusing the person who wants to hurt you, I think is very interesting. And I like how they use the word dazzle, like almost like this creature that you are dazzling is sort of starstruck or awe-inspired, or it's not just confused, but dazzled. We are going to move right along to the Great Barrier Reef off the coast of Australia. Now, of course, the reefs are filled with all sorts of life, different animals, sea creatures, coral, plants, what have you. We are going to center in and focus in on a fish called a blue striped blenny. Now, these little guys are this sort of orangey red color with these bright electric blue stripes on them. And what they do is they hang out near these cleaning stations underwater on this reef. So these cleaning stations are where larger fish can come and hang out, and these little smaller fish called wrasses, cleaner wrasses, W-R-A-S-S-E. So these little cleaner wrasse fish will come and eat little parasites off of these bigger fish. Again, in a beautiful display of teamwork and collaboration between these different animals out in nature. These big fish, they get a little spa treatment. They get cleaned. They get these little pests off of them. These little wrasses get a meal for themselves. So everybody is benefiting. Everybody is getting something out of this. Now, the blue striped blennies eat the flesh of these larger fish. That is their meal. Don't ask me why. I don't know why. It seems like a little bit of cannibalism to me, but these blue striped blennies get their meat from other fish. And of course, a fish isn't just gonna let you come and bite it, right? So what they do, the blue striped blennies can actually change their color. They can change their color and make themselves look like the cleaner wrasses. So they kind of shimmy into a little hiding hole, and it takes a couple of minutes, and their blue stripes fade and their orange color fades, and they turn the same sort of black and white color of the wrasses. They look very, very similar. The tails are a little different. I think that's, us as observers can look and find the little small differences and say, okay, no, that's a wrasse and that's a blenny. But I'm sure, day to day, you're a fish, you're not really going to be looking too closely at the tail of the little fish around you. So these blennies will turn black and white to look like the cleaner wrasses, and they will kind of shimmy their way in and kind of hang around one of the bigger fish, let the wrasse do a little bit of work, and then they'll swoop in and bite and take a chunk of flesh from that larger fish. And you can see it on the video. They kind of dart in and the fish kind of freaks out a little bit and darts and swims away. But, the blenny has its meal. It got a little mouthful of flesh. It's happy for the moment, I suppose. And again, it comes back to a balance. So these guys have to be careful. They can't take too much. They can't consume too much of these bigger fish. Otherwise, the fish are going to stop coming to this cleaning station, right? They're going to realize, they're going to learn, oh, I come here, I don't get cleaned, I just get bit. So let me go somewhere else. Let me find another cleaning station. And then the blue striped blennies don't have meals anymore. So it's a delicate balance of taking a little bit here and there, but not taking too much. Now, I thought of an interesting comparison for this. Imagine that you want to go get your hair done, or you want to go get a facial done, and you pick a place, you look it up, it's got great reviews, you see other people saying, oh yeah, I got my hair done here, I got a facial here, it was great. You go and you sign up, you pay what you need to, you go in for your treatment. There's another woman there, she's doing your hair, or she's, giving you a facial, you've got your eyes closed, you're enjoying it yourself, you're taking a load off, you're relaxing, you're not worried about anything here, right? You came here to be pampered. You came here to get a little spa treatment done. And then you're there and someone else comes in, maybe the woman who's doing your hair steps away for a moment and someone else comes up and you haven't seen them there before. They weren't there when you first walked in, and they say, oh, I'm new. Let me, I'm just going to take over for a second here. I'm going to finish up your hair. Okay. And so they're darting in. You're wondering, this is a little weird. Maybe I don't quite know who you are, but this is what I came here for. I guess I'll just trust that, you're going to do your job. Okay. And you close your eyes, you relax. You let them do what they're going to do. And instead of finishing your hair or continuing the facial, they lean down and they bite you. and they bite you and you jump and you scream and you freak out and they jump and scream and freak out and they run away. They just run out the door and they're gone. and maybe you run after them. And you look out and you start screaming and yelling, that person, whatever, but they're gone and they've disappeared, and maybe they left a wig on the ground, maybe they left the jacket they were wearing on the ground, and they're gone and you have no idea who they are anymore. I would be freaked out. I would not be necessarily excited about going back there if there's a chance that I'm going to get bit. But c'est la vie. This is the way that the animal kingdom works. It is very interesting to get a little peek into their world. Now let's take a peek into the lives of some birds of southern Zambia. So there's a bird called a common waxbill. It's a cute little bird. They make these little nests fairly close to the ground. They look like little holes in a bush, basically. And they, of course, lay their eggs in here. They hatch these little chicks, and the chicks are born with this very distinct white and black pattern around their beaks, or what they call them when they're chicks, they call them gapes. Like your mouth is gaping open, ready to be fed with food, because that's how baby chicks are. They are fed by their parents, so they have these open gapes. They have a very distinct black and white pattern. This kind of gives the parental birds the notion of, okay, this is where all the food needs to go, right? So that sounds great. That sounds very normal, a happy, cute little family. There is also a bird called a pin-tailed wydah, W-Y-D-A-H, pin-tailed wydah. And what these birds do is they lay an egg in the nest of the waxbills. And the mom lays the egg and then leaves. It leaves the bird, and the bird hatches, this wydah hatches in the midst of all of these waxbills. And they look slightly different, but their beak and their gape has a very similar pattern to the waxbills. So upon first glance, there is this other chick in there, but it looks just like all the rest of the waxbills. And so the parents will also feed this pin-tailed wydah chick, thinking that it's one of their own. Now, I'm pretty sure that they are not necessarily counting the number of eggs that they laid and the number of chicks that hatch, because otherwise they would realize that there's an extra one in there and there might be some questions and some confusions. But again, these are birds. I think their brains are a little bit simpler than that. They see an open mouth in their nest. They think, I better feed that mouth. So the wydah gets big pretty fast and kind of takes, more than its share of the food because it needs a little bit more. It's a bit of a bigger bird, and you can see it growing faster than the other chicks. But at that point, it's kind of been accepted as part of the family already. They're not gonna kick it out now. It's a sibling, it's a family member. It's already been fed by this parent. They've formed maybe some sort of connection or bond to it. So these parents keep feeding it. This wydah actually grows faster than the other chicks. So it takes its share. It takes as much as it can get. It grows and grows and grows, and then it leaves. And then it leaves. So it's basically the mother wydah lays an egg and leaves its chick to sit and mooch off of this completely other species of bird, relying on the fact that a chick will have a similar looking beak to the other waxbill chicks. And is basically the mom is pushing off the responsibility of feeding and raising a child onto another set of parents, relying on the generosity and the confusion of this other set of parents to then raise its child, who it actually never really sees again. So, I mean, in the realm of animals and birds, it's normal for the parents to kind of lay or hatch or have their children and then not necessarily give it a ton of extra attention, especially like birds and reptiles. The birds and animals are a lot of the times born with natural instincts. You don't need to raise them. You don't need to show them. That's more of a mammal thing. Mammals need their young to stay close to them and need to stay close to their young, spend a certain amount of time in order to raise them to be able to take care of themselves in the world. Other animals don't. But it's it's just funny, right? It's just funny for us to think about a mom having a baby, but being like, here, you raise the baby. I don't want it. Yeah, I had it, but I want you to feed it for me. I want you to take care of it. I don't care that you already have half a dozen other chicks to take care of. You can take care of mine too, right? It's just one extra mouth. Very interesting. Very interesting. All right, we've got one more that I want to talk about. This is a bit of a shorter episode today. I need a little bit of a break. I just wanted to learn some cool animal facts and share them with you guys. So this last story is going to take us to South Africa. There's a place called the Orange River. Specifically on the Orange River, a set of land called the Agrebies Falls. And this is a stretch of, kind of rocky waterfalls. And of course, we know that where water is, there will be life, there will be animals. Water is a bringer of life, both to others and to it. So we are going to specifically look at a colony, a population, I would say, of these flat-backed lizards. Now these lizards they may be about, I don't know, they look to be about, their bodies are maybe 6 to 8 inches long, and then their tails are a little longer. So they're pretty good sizable lizards. The males of this species are very bright and colorful. Some of them had like bluish green scales with yellow hands and stuff like that. And they're very pretty. And apparently the more colorful and bright your scales are, that is a equal representation of the level of your strength and fitness as a lizard. So the stronger, more athletic lizards are going to be a little bit brighter and a little bit more colorful. They use these colors both to show off and then to fight for dominance or an advantageous location. So a lot of the times the lizards, if one of them is on a rock and another one comes up and they're both males, you'll see them kind of square off a little bit, kind of walk around each other, size each other up. And the lizard that is more colorful will sort of win that exchange, and the other one will sort of back away and go try and find somewhere else to hang out. If it doesn't work by just, looking and showing off, then they will actually fight each other for dominance of that location. And so what they are fighting for usually is the best spot near the river to eat their food. And their food is flies. There's these tiny little black flies that hang out around the rocks and the water of this river and of these Agrabies Falls. And the lizards will sort of come up on these rocks and hang out near the little colonies of flies, and you can see them. It's actually very cute to watch them. Like, they're sitting there, they're looking, the flies are flying around. One gets a little too close and they do a little jump and spring and open their mouth and catch a little fly completely whole in their mouth, and then they kind of like bump and hit the rocks and land again a little bit awkwardly. It's very funny. But these lizards will fight for dominant positions on these rocks in order to have the best spot to sit and hunt and eat these little black flies. Now, the females of the species, the female flat-backed lizards, their coloring, and you see this a lot of the times in other animals, their coloring is much more simple, much more dull. They are just sort of browns and grays and neutral colors. And the female ones are able to kind of move freely throughout the rocks for their meals. They don't need to fight the males for them. The males understand, these are female lizards. They can come and go as they please. Of course, they don't want other males coming into their territory. But they let the females do as they wish. So about 1 in 10 of these males are not as strong or as dominant as the others. They're a little bit weaker. And because of that, they are going to have a much harder time finding good spots on the rocks to get their meals. And the brown males, these males, they stay brown. They are able to somehow kind of control their coloring and their pigmentation, and they can stay sort of that dull brown color with maybe a little bit of blue on their throat as the only thing to kind of give them away as a male of the species. But they can delay their pigment changing so that they still resemble a female. And these males will use that resemblance, will use that camouflage and look like the female counterparts of their species and kind of sneak around the locations where these other males are at in order to deceive, and in doing so achieve some of the resources and the food that they would not otherwise be able to if they had to fight. So these males are delaying, they're basically masquerading as females in order to make their way through this lizard society a little bit easier. Now, eventually, in order to breed, they will have to develop the color and make themselves attractive to females. But if that's not on their priority list at the moment, if they're just trying to eat some food and get a little bit stronger and get a little bit hardier and, bulk up a little bit, as they say. Then they can delay their color change, look like females in order to sneak past the other males and avoid the confrontation that they might otherwise encounter. Now, if we're going to look at this from a more human perspective, this would be as if men who do not feel as, strong within society, do not feel as masculine, do not feel as if they can compete with other men in the way that men usually do. It's as if some of these, weaker men decide to present themselves as women, try and pass themselves off as females in order to get a bit of a better standing within society, in order to be treated better within society, and have access to some of the safety and some of the resources that women get inherently by the nature of them being female. Interesting. Doesn't that sound familiar? I'm not going to touch on that too much. I just, it's interesting to see the parallels in this these lizards in the remote rivers in South Africa, kind of presenting the same behaviors that a small amount of men, but some men in society are presenting in the modern day. Just a little bit of food for thought. Now, there were some other animals in this episode that they touched on that we are not going to, because they were just not as interesting, or a little bit smaller, not as significant to me at least. So I would encourage you to go and watch this episode for yourself. It's very interesting. The footage that they were able to take of this was very cool. It was very high quality, very high definition. Seeing all of the colors, seeing some of these animals that you don't see on a daily basis, seeing them represented and talked about was very cool. I definitely learned a lot. I hope you learned a lot too. I know this was a shorter one, but like I said, I needed the break. We talked about some heavy stuff over the past couple of weeks, so I thought it'd be nice to lighten up a little bit, just learn some cool new animal facts, learn some more about the world that we live in that we don't necessarily get to interact with on a day-to-day basis. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me today. If you want to support the podcast, please interact in some way. Leave a review, leave a comment, answer the Q&A. I always give shout outs at the end of every episode to anyone who has interacted in some way, just as a token of my appreciation. If you want to become a special agent yourself, come follow us on Instagram at SmartyPantsPod. You can leave me your opinions and your feedback in the comments there. I will always read and respond to them as well. All right, you guys, again, that's it. Thank you so much. I hope you learned something new today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Stick around after this for some shout outs. Otherwise, I will talk to you again next week. Ciao.